All right, boys and girls, we are now going to be estimating fractions, sums, and differences. Yes, even in fractions, I think it's important to estimate. So, Kimberly will be riding her bike to school this year. The distance from her house to the end of the street is 1/6 mile. The distance from the end of the street to the school is 3/8 mile. About how far is Kimberly's home from the school? So we're going to use the benchmarks, and remember those benchmarks are what are easily numbers on here. So we're going to use a number line, and we went from a 0. Here's the benchmarks: 0, 1/2, or 1 whole. We're going to estimate 1/6. So we have a 6 here. So what is the 6 between? It's between the 0 and 1/2. It's closer to what? The 0. So we're going to round it to a 0. So we have 0 plus, and then we're going to do the same thing here. 3/8 is closest to, it's between 0 and 1/2, and it's closer to 1/2. So we're going to round it to 1/2. So 1/2, 0 plus 1/2 equals 1/2. Or if we're going to put it on the side here, this equal to 0, 1/2. 0 plus 1/2 is 1/2. So we think it's about 1/2. Okay? Which is fairly simple when you're estimating using the benchmark of a 0, half, or 1. So let's look here. And I'm going to round 9/10 to, well, 10/10 is a whole. So 9/10 is closer to 1 whole. 5/8, if I look at 5/8, 4/8 we know equals a half. So 5/8 is close to 1/2. So now we have 1 minus 1/2. Well, if I have a whole and I take away a half, I have a half left. So it's about a half. So let's try to estimate these. All right. We have 2 and 7/8. So I'm going to write 2 minus, I don't know what. I have 0 whole numbers, so I'm just going to put a 0 there to hold that spot. 7/8 is closest to, well, 7/8. 8/8 is 1 whole, so I'm going to round 7/8 to 1. 2/5 is, well, 2/5 is quite a ways away from 5/5, which, or even 3/5 is kind of a half. So what do you want to do? 2/5, if I look at my number line, let's go back to the number line. Or let's quick make a number line. That will probably be smarter. And here's a half, here's a 0, and here's a whole. So I have to do fifths. So 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, 4/5, 5/5. So 2/5 would be right here. Well, I would say that's probably closer than it is to 0. So I'm going to subtract it from a half. That's just my thoughts, is subtracting it from a half when I did a number line. So 1/2, and if I subtract 1 whole subtracted by a half equals a half. And I have 2 wholes, so 2.5 is my estimate. If I'm going to add this, I'm going to do 1 whole plus 4 wholes, because those are easy to round. Unless this comes to a whole, then I can round it. So 8/9 equals 8/9 equals, I say, 1 whole. So I could round this up to be a 2. Because 1 whole plus 1 whole is a 2. 8/10. Well, 8/10. 8 is very close to 10/10. So I'm going to round that up to a whole again. So I'm going to change this to a 5, because that's another whole. And my estimate is 7. Now, could have I rounded this to a 3? You betcha I could have. I could have changed that to a 3, take away a half, and I still get 2.5. All right. So we're estimating. You just got to know what you're close to on fractions. So share and show what you know here. And yes, I would like you to do them all. It doesn't take us very long. I would like you to do all of these. Doesn't take us very long. I want us to get used to using our benchmarks and estimating so we can see if our answer is close. We can skip this back for now. Homework, evens. Do not have to do number 12 because it's a written one. 1 or 2, all of the bottom. So let's estimate using benchmarks. And I think you're really starting to see how to add and subtract fractions. We're going to get right down to it in the next lesson.